is a sweet new baby that's had nothing in his throat yet.
Yeah.
You know, and like this digging in his throat. I mean, she
It's
talked
in-
about the physical structures, but what about the psychological aspects, since that's your field where this baby is separated from
Yeah.
his mother?
Let there be mercy. Oh, the mercy now here in my soul. Let me feel this mercy as it pours down and pours through.
His mother and his father and his aunt and his brother and his grandmother are all in the room. Nobody is able to say to these medical people, "Hey, stop it."
Can't hide from the nurse, sorry. Gentle. Can't hide from the nurse. You can run from the doctor, but you can't hide from the nurse. There we go. Let's get there you go, honey.
All right. Time to go to mommy?
He's beautiful.
Time to go to mommy now?
We're going to wrap him up in a blanket and we'll give him to you in just a second. We have to make an assessment of it, okay? Okay. Give him another blankety blanket. I'm being really needy today, I'm sorry. How's he sound? Sound okay?
Yeah.
He's gorgeous.
Let us hold him. Whoa, stop. You know,
Yeah.
none of us were able to do that. Like, what's the, like for the family, or for the baby, let's just talk about the baby. What's the, from your science and the background, you know, what could be, how could that affect the baby?
Well, you've said it very well. You've got layers of trauma here. You've got the physical trauma to the throat, and they're doing a lot of jabbing with this instrument. Babies always react to that. And that's what this baby is complaining about. But they don't see it as a complaint. They're dumb. They're ignorant about the baby. But they think they're the experts, and the parents tend to accept their authority. They're not well prepared for a confrontation here to say, stop what you're doing, because they'd get an argument from the medical people. What we're doing is saving your baby's life. We're helping your baby to get that meconium out of there. What are you going to say? It's their territory, they're in charge, and they're going to do what they think they have to do to that baby. They're mixed up in their priorities. And what's mainly missing is psychology in medicine. They're not thinking that it has any psychological meaning. They're just doing their stuff. That's another level of ignorance and trauma. I'm talking in general about the mindset of medicine. And I think that's a fair description of where they are. There are always marvelous people who are not like this at all. They have the awareness. They have the respect. They know it's a sacred moment. They don't even talk. There are obstetricians who believe in staying in the background and not interfering, letting the mother do it with midwifery to help. And this is the pattern of Michel Audin in France and England. Now they stand back out of the way. And the tradition in midwifery is a whole different way of thinking about how to handle a baby and a mother. So they do much less interference. What we see in these pictures is constant interference with the idea that it's perfect for the baby. It is not. It's a hallucination. They imagine it's wonderful for the baby, and what they're doing is the best possible care. They're wrong about that. They're delusional.
Is there a place for love in the workplace in obstetrics?
Any place that is devoid of love is dangerous. But not everybody has that wisdom. And especially in the medical training, they're not taught about how to love the baby. It's not a consideration. As long as you believe there's nobody home, why love it? It allows them to go ahead and do everything that they think is right to do for the baby. But they're misguided because they don't know what baby they're dealing with. That's the tragedy. And these are smart people, or they wouldn't get through medical school. But they don't hear anything about the baby's psyche. They don't talk about souls. It's not part of medicine. They teach techniques, and they go on and on with their techniques, no matter how painful they are. They really didn't believe that babies in the womb or at birth had pain receptors. And even if they did have pain receptors, they were confident that the brain couldn't interpret it yet. So they're locked in to a belief system. It's actually dogma rather than evidence-based. These are dogmas about babies. And the evidence is all in. We have heaps of evidence that they're off on the wrong track.
And yet, that's where we're required to have our babies.
It's routine. The American people have somehow decided, 95% of them, to go to the hospital and go through that for various wrong reasons, really. Like, it's got to be safer, but statistically, it's not safer to be in a hospital. In fact, in a hospital, there are more and more complications and dangers involved. So it's not a simple choice to go because it's safe. Again, it's misleading.
So, can you say more about the psychology of birth?
Well, you have the tenderest of situations here. A brand new experience for the baby to leave the womb where everything was soft and round and functions were smooth and natural. And here is a world where people start putting needles into you and jabbing you and poking you with instruments. The baby knows how it's feeling and is protesting as loudly as possible, and nobody pays any serious attention. Now that's frustration carried too far. It can't be good for the baby. It gives the baby a bad start. The whole impression is, what has happened? What is this crazy world that I've come into here? My view is that the baby is always thinking, but medicine doesn't have that view. They're stuck behind the idea that the brain is not yet fully functioning. It's not developed, it's not refined enough for thinking, not refined enough for learning, not refined enough to care what's happening. All of that is totally wrong. But medicine proceeds in its own stubborn way to do what it thinks is right.
So what is the right way?
Well, the missing piece is psychology. The baby has a psyche. The baby is learning from everything. And once you grasp that, you see that the baby shouldn't be having these lessons. Nobody should be trying to teach torture to a baby who's just come out of the womb. But to the baby is going to learn this, and it's going to be torture whether we think so or not. The psychology is missing.
When does the psyche start?
I think it's always there. I don't think a baby begins without a psyche.
So at conception?
It's part of human nature to have a psyche. We're not talking how much brain matter there is now. We're talking psyche, which literally means mind or soul. It's a different realm of awareness and knowing.
So this
And
baby's soul is aware. This baby's soul is there and aware and taking this in.
yes, and the baby is recording this. And it's going to be part of what the baby learns about life and about what people do. In this case, what doctors do, what happens in the hospitals. It's very bad publicity for hospitals, what we see in this picture. They shouldn't be behaving this way. They don't know any better.
And what can we say to fathers and mothers to help them? Because 96% of the babies are born in the hospital, and
Yeah.
you know, parents believe that that's where they're safer.
Yes,
Fathers will often will be afraid to support their wife to have a home birth because they are so ingrained that they have to be safe by being in the hospital. And so this is what they get. This particular father did not want to have a home birth. It was legal in Arizona. They could have done a home birth, but he felt it wasn't safe to do a home birth.
and so they went to the hospital.
So they went to the hospital, and this is what they got. And you've also seen a different home birth.
Well, you know, these are you're talking about the consequences of ignorance. The father took the view he did because he had the wrong information. He just didn't understand.
Well, most of our society has that wrong information.
They do. And in our culture, the direction of education is from the authorities and the experts down to the lay people. And usually, ordinary folks give that authority to the doctors. And in the case that we're looking at here, the doctors don't know better, and they are not acting like real authorities. They don't realize what they're doing to hurt the baby. They're flying blind.
Well, what can we do?
Well, we can educate the parents. Parents desperately need this education.
So how can we educate parents? What could they do in this situation?
Well, we have to teach them who the baby really is. Otherwise, they'll act like the doctors, like the baby isn't there. And the cries don't count.
The cries don't seem to count at the hospital.
No.
They count when you get home. Parents know that this cry means something when they get home.
That's an illustration of parents using intuition. They know deep down somewhere that when a baby is screaming and crying, they should do something about it. They don't ignore it. They don't smile and laugh about how strong the baby's voice is, which happens in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents are the ones who need to be sensitive and intuitive and know who that baby is and follow. Follow their intuition. But if there's no knowledge to back it up, they're likely to give in and let the doctors do what they're doing. It's wonderful, but it's so unusual to have any doctor at a home birth. It's very rare, but in birth centers, which are independent from hospitals usually, doctors can be there at the birth, and they tend to behave a little differently than they do in the hospital. But again, it depends on the belief system of the doctor who's present. And the doctor's feeling about love and the sensitivity of the baby and trauma. I mean, some doctors don't believe that trauma is possible because, again, the brain is too small to recognize trauma for trauma.
And they didn't believe pain, but yet they have seen babies screaming like this
Oh,
for
yes.
decades.
Oh, they have, yes. For 60 years, it's been a common practice to ignore what the baby is expressing because it's not real, it's not meaningful.
Somewhere inside us we know, even if we don't follow our intuition, what happens afterwards when they haven't followed their intuition. Like in their psyche, in the psyche of the father and the mother, when there's...
You mean when they finally find out the truth?
Well, you could answer that one too, yeah.
Well, usually they feel regret and guilt that they didn't do something to stop it. But it's too late. But it's not too late to work with the problems that are the consequence.
There's a lot of grief in that.
The grief is appropriate when you look back at how things were done and you were ignorant and you did the wrong thing.
For allowing people to harm your baby.
Without even knowing that they were doing harm. Ignorance is ignorance. We have a lot of it. And one of the things we're very ignorant about is the nature of the baby in the womb and the baby at birth. We used to think nothing could impress them. Now it's the opposite. We know that nearly everything impresses them. They hardly miss a trick. They're little sponges, absorbing all of the experiences, sounds around them, just like they're learning their mother tongue while they're in the womb. We have lots of evidence about learning in the womb. And the babies don't seem to wait until they have any number of ounces of brain. It seems apart from and beyond the brain.
Can be much kinder, let the mercy through. We can be much kinder, let the mercy through.